In chapter 13 of John, we see the beginning of the Last Supper. And John's gospel is the only one that doesn't have the institution of the Eucharist narrative, because John's Eucharistic theology is developed in chapter 6, where we hear, "Unless you eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, you do not have life within you." John focuses on the foot washing, and there we see an intrinsic linkage between the gift of the Eucharist and the washing of the feet. That Jesus empties himself out in the Eucharist as he will pour himself out on the cross, and then he does the work of a slave. He washes the feet of his apostles. And there we see the whole subversion of the social order, that the unredeemed world is trying to get to the top, wants to be number one, is competitive, trying to beat out somebody else. We see in the foot washing Jesus descending to the bottom, doing the work of a slave, humbling himself. And he does that to teach us the profound lesson of life, that if we seek to be first, we should be last. If we want to be great, we should become little. That if we want to find joy, we must give ourselves away. And that if we want to live, we must die to self. So here we see the full paradox of the gospel. But it's by going with the Lord on this downward path of humility, going to the very bottom, that we discover his mercy and power in our lives. So there's no task, there's no act of service that should be beneath us as a Christian. Because when we follow our Lord and Master, we're following one who thought nothing of humbling himself to wash the feet of his apostles, he who is the very Son of God. No wonder Simon Peter objects, and yet in the end surrenders. So we ask the Lord to make us washers of feet, that like him, we pour ourselves out in the service of others. And all of that impulse flows from the power of the Eucharist. So for us as Christians, there's a linkage between the Eucharist, the priesthood, and service. We see all that on full display in the beautiful narrative of the Last Supper.